that is application of machine learning in signal, image, and computer vision. That is Amalgam. You have shorted it very beautifully. That is Amalgam 2021. Yeah. And the topic is also the amalgamation of several technologies which are going to be useful for various applications in different fields of science and technology. So I hope everyone is enjoying the participation in this course. I have been given this responsibility to share something with you regarding IEEE standards. So please allow me to share my slides with you. I'm sharing it here. Is it visible, Varunji?
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Just a minute. Let me make it full screen. It is here. So we will talk about this IEEE standards. We will just have an overview because the standards, specifically IEEE standards, they are one set of standards available globally, globally available standards. There are several standardization bodies, but we know that IEEE standards, we most of them follow for our technical and research activities, and they have an importance in our daily life. So whenever you get a new tablet or a laptop or a smart speaker, the very first thing probably you do is connect it to your Wi-Fi network. And or you may get a new pair of Bluetooth headphones or a small earbuds. You immediately pair it with your this smartphone or tablet or any device which you are using, and it provides the mode of connectivity with that particular new earbuds. But after that, you never think about those connections again. Instead, you are free to focus on the outcomes such as messages, videos, calls, and other data content flowing over those connections and enjoying the those messages and other contents. But we shall never forget that this all is possible due to the technology standards such as IEEE 802, which provides a framework that enable devices from different manufacturers to communicate with one another. So if you see your daily routine from the morning time of your waking up, and from that onwards, your time when you arrive at your work or you travel in between, you use several of technology standards. But you probably did not know it, on which standards to which standard you are using, or you are shifting your use from which standard to another standard. Yes, this is a good thing because this all is a seamless process which is shifting from 1 to 2 and 2 to n. And this is a major reason why standards are used, and they do exist in this domain of technology. And in this way, they make our everyday life easier. These standards provide highly detailed information, such as how devices identify one another, how data flows between them, and how those data transfer and all these communications, they are kept secure. In fact, nearly every aspect of how we live, how we work, how we play, how we enjoy, and we use other modes of communication and data streaming, they all rely on multiple of, you may say, hundreds of technology standards which are being used by these manufacturers who are providing us these content with some standard procedures, protocols, etc., etc. So we will focus on these issues primarily in this talk. First of all, we will try to understand what are standards. Next, why are standards important? How are standards used? In this way, we will also try to divide this point in IEEE standards used in our everyday life, specifically for health device communication, because in last 2 years, we were more concerned about the health issues. And we have found that the equipment and such as very small sort of equipment, such as this oximeter and blood pressure monitor, temperature monitor, they were in our use in our daily life or in our surrounding in abundance. Then next comes this enabling connectivity through IEEE standards in our daily life for our daily communication, for our daily transportation, and other segments. We will discuss them just for the sake of introduction. Then comes this IEEE Standards Association, which is responsible for developing and maintaining all these standards. Then IEEE SA Industry Connection IC program, that is a very important aspect of this. Then engagement of IEEE Standard Association with the standard bodies of India. And finally, we will try to understand how these standards are created or revised for maintenance. And this covers this IEEE standards working groups who are voluntarily participating in maintenance or creating of these standards. And finally, we will also try to know how we can get involved in developing these standards with IEEE Standard Association. So, first of all, let me explain you what are the standards. Standards are basically published documents that establish technical specifications and procedures designed to maximize the reliability of the materials, products, methods, and or services that people use in their daily life. It may be anything. I repeat, it may be material, product, method, and service, anything. A standard can be thought of as an agreed upon norm used by people, industry, and government that outlines the best way to complete a task, whether it is about developing a product, providing a service, controlling a process, or interacting with the world. In this way, the standards cover everything from setting the size of the simplest screw and its thread to managing the most complex information in the technology network. Standards provide, basically they provide a level playing field for all stakeholders in that particular industry, and they also help in building trust between participants who are going to use them, means in the supply chain. In this way, they serve as a handshake between various components of systems and allow for interoperability. Standards also play a vital role in protecting the health and safety of the consumers in a range of sectors, including food and consumer products, infrastructure, and the different workspaces. They are drafted in such a way that it allows another party to test and certify that a product or process or system, they meet the requirement of that particular standard before they are being offered to any of us or all of us for use. They make things work, and in this way they also help innovation to spread, and they facilitate efficient trading among states, provinces, countries, or you can say this economic reasons, or if you see it globally, they may be an international community of users. So this, we are more concerned about basically these technology standards. So technology standards provide a framework that enables devices from different manufacturers to communicate with one another, right? That is called multi-vendor compatibility. And that is why, for example, your Samsung mobile phone, it works with Sony headsets or vice versa. Or they may connect to your electric vehicle, they may connect you to even this laptop. In this way, these interconnections are being allowed because they are basically properly defined within the standards which are being used by all the manufacturers for a single purpose to which they are fulfilling. And we all know that how it is happening. We do not know how this Bluetooth is connected from one device to another. But yes, it is like electricity. We cannot see electricity, but we enjoy the presence of electricity. We enjoy the similarly, we enjoy the Bluetooth or this other technology advantages because they are happening behind the scenes. And they all happen automatically, ensuring that this maps in your mobile phone or this playlist of your video or audios, they are updated automatically as per your uses, either at one device or another. But when you sync it, means that is the option of your service provider. When you sync it, they are available across the devices. So in this process, the standards provide a stable but continually evolving foundation that enables entire industries to develop and thrive. So in this way, we can define if these are the standards and these are their role in our daily life. And if we see that in summary, we can say that standards set out requirements, specifications, guidelines, or characteristics that can be consistently applied to ensure that products, materials, processes, and services perform as intended, qualitatively, safely, and efficiently. So this was a basic introduction about the standards. And if we move ahead, we can find that the standards, they are an unseen force behind technological innovation and adoption, as I explained you previously with examples. right? You cannot see standards, but they are at work behind the scenes every day. From device to device, network to network, across borders and around the world, almost all products, services, and technologies in use, they are created, connected, or enabled in some way by some specific standard. So simply in summary, you can say they are the documents that establish an agreed upon way of doing something, as I stated in the very first line of my explanation. Next, why are standards important? Yes, they are important. Sometimes what happens, if my devices are not connected, if my printer is not connected due to my laptop, I can, and if these connections are not wired, so it is being a continuous point of exploration why it is not working. But very simple thing is, it is not working because the connections, they are either not connecting some specified protocols, or they are not connecting due to lack of some technical information which device A is not able to provide device B, and that's why device B is not accepting the input from the device A. So these all connectivities, which sometimes seems very seamless, sometimes they become painful also, because some difference in the versions, some difference in the models. So these are the few points. Sometimes you feel that this older Bluetooth and the newer version of Bluetooth, even they are not compatible. So first, that's the reason we must understand what are the basic points they shall be taken into consideration while using these standards. And these points, very small points, they make these standards important. So what happens, these standards, they are basically the fundamental building blocks for any product development. By establishing consistent protocols that can be universally understood and adopted. So definitely this is going to make it compatible. This is going to make the device more interoperable. And in this way, the product development is going to be simplified. And definitely, if the protocols are already available for the use of those manufacturers or vendors, so they do not have to start right from the scratch, right? They have something ready to be used, and they may use those protocols for the testing of their products, and accordingly they can check the success of their product. Are they connecting or not? Are they following these standards or not? So in this way, these standards, they ensure that products are reliable, secure, safe, compatible, interoperable, efficient, and scalable as per the standard practices of the global uses or global manufacturing. And while consumers and businesses, they are confident that products are going to work as expected, these consumers are more likely to buy them, right? If I do not know that this particular Sony, for example, this Sony headphone is not going to work with my Dell laptop, definitely I will not buy them, right? I will have to search for some more compatible. So who brings this confidence? Yes, this particular Sony device is going to work with my Dell laptop, or vice versa. So these are the standards. Basically, they make it easier to understand and compare the other competing products in the market in that very range. So in this way, we can say the standards which are globally adopted and applied in several markets across the globe, they fuel international trade and they boost up the economy. And this is the importance of the standards, and that's why They are preferred globally. Then comes this IEEE standards. How are standards used? These are the few examples. I will try to explain them one by one. This one I have taken from this electric vehicle standard. Second is conformity assessment program. Third is distributed energy resources. And fourth is image quality program. All are having their own websites. You can have a look on them. For if you need more details, you can contact me. I can give you more details regarding this, but we will take these examples just in short. So these standards, these are the examples I have considered. Once they have standards are used for this conformance and conformance testing and this certification program. These programs basically like this ICAP, they ensure goods and services produced. They confirm the established technology and industry standards across the globe. There are many benefits to standard conformity and certification programs, including this larger database, larger base of consumers and buyer confidence in the product, right? So this first example, let me tell you that this particular IEEE 2030.1.1, this standard was published in 2015. I remember it. It specifies basically gives a design interface of electric vehicles and this DC charging, direct current charging requirements, promoting the interoperability of the different chargers and different electric vehicles. So this was a standard. In this way it was developed. If the chargers available will follow this particular requirements of standard, and manufacturer will also provide this type of compatibility in their vehicle. In this way, they will have more users for their applications or their products. Second comes this IEEE SA Conformity Assessment Program, that is ICAP. This spans a wide variety of industries and applications. For example, this also includes this electrical equipment for nuclear power. They also for equipment for telecommunication devices and electric vehicles also. And they also have this, another example is the distributed energy resource program, because so many manufacturers are producing the products in that particular domain. So for specific products, they are required to follow these programs. Based on this IEEE 1547, and this specific standard is for renewable energy and smart grid, and it works with the regulators and utilities to eventually help communities on the way how they integrate this renewable resources such as wind, solar, and hydropower, so that these interconnections or connections from outside can make these grids more reliable and resilient. Either they are connected to our home or they are connected to different differently located energy sources of this smart grid. And the final example that may be more suitable for area of this course, that is camera phone image quality, that is CPIQ program. Basically, this is based on IEEE P1858 standard. This program helps enabling an industry supported and easily understood consumer rating system. Basically, that provides you with comprehensive and accurate evaluations of the image quality for our smartphones or these tablets and other mobile devices such as laptops, etc. It also other than this helping our photos and videos improvement, quality improvement, this CPIQ program also supports the cameras which are being used in these electric vehicles or these IC engine based vehicles also, just to avoid these accidents, right? Basically, we have seen that the use of cameras has increased for better control in these vehicles nowadays. So this image quality of the cameras, either they are security cameras or they are cameras for the health related issues. So this quality of the camera, videos, etc., or still images, they all are being controlled by this particular standards. So these are 4 examples I have given you in the different domains of our daily life. This for vehicles, this for standard program enhancement of conformity. Third is for renewable energy resources in a smart grid, and fourth for image quality of camera image quality, basically. So next we will try to explain you how these IEEE standards are used in our daily life, because we all know that this technology has become an integral aspect of our daily life, from the internet to the smart grid and healthcare to transportation. These technology standards are used in a variety of ways. IEEE standards, they enable many of these technologies, which I have just gave you example. And they also have helped people cope up with these COVID-19 pandemic in last few years. And in this way, they have come together virtually in the time of this global pandemic. As an example, if you take this 8010 series, one is there a specific example within this 802 family is IEEE 802.11. This is IEEE standards for Wi-Fi. It creates a framework that enables a wide variety of devices from different vendors to communicate with one another. This standardized interoperability allows people to use their favorite devices and applications such as FaceTime or Skype with any Wi-Fi access point. This is a very general use which we are using in our daily life, in day-to-day life, without any differentiation between any age group, right from a newborn, you can say a very young child, to the older ones. They are using these standards for this interconnections of communication. There was a gentleman named Paul Nikolic. He was basically the chairman of this IEEE 802 standard committee. He once said that if you consider the examples of the users of IEEE 802, you will find that from the local coffee shop to the International Space Station, this IEEE 802 Standard Committee product has dramatically influenced our everyday lives and will continue to do so. Many things which fundamentally rely upon, for example, email. You cannot consider a life without email today, would not be broadly available as dependable without this IEEE 802 network standards. And I hope we all do agree with this statement of Paul Nikolic. Yes, IEEE 802 has played a tremendous role in our daily life for this daily connectivity of social media and other platforms, which are they are popular like anything in our today's era, where in which we are living. So IEEE standards have brought about many great evolutionary leaps that we rely upon, really. But we may not recognize just because of this lack of information among ourselves. Let me explain these standards for health device communication. I hope this slide is visible to you. I have taken this website, this IEEE Standard Association website. This image is available there. You can find it there. I mentioned this reference in the next slide, I think. There it is mentioned properly. This has been taken from there. So these IEEE standards, they are helping doctors and their patients. Recently, these COVID-19 time and other times also, where they have to fight with some chronic conditions.
Hello, sir. You are not audible.
Just wait. I think there is some network issue on the speaker side. So he has already informed about it. So please have patience.
वरुण जी, मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ यस सर, आ रही है आपकी आवाज। जी सर।
क्या आवाज बंद हो गई थी बीच में?
हाँ सर, बीच में ऑडिबल नहीं था सर।
कहाँ पर कुछ बता सकते हैं, कहाँ तक बात हुई थी?
सर, जब आपने ये वाली स्लाइड स्टार्ट की थी तो उसके कुछ देर के बाद आवाज आई थी बस। फिर आपका शायद नेटवर्क इशू की वजह से आवाज नहीं आई थी।
Oh my God. So,
जी।
एक मिनट, मैंने 11073 के पहले एक स्टेटमेंट दिया था पॉल निकोलिच के बारे में।
जी।
हैव यू हर्ड दैट?
हाँ सर, वो स्टेटमेंट हो गया था सर।
पॉल निकोलिच का, अच्छा ठीक है। तो फिर मैंने आपको बताना शुरू किया था कि वी आर यूजिंग दिस IEEE P11073 स्टैंडर्ड। आई थिंक
जी।
वहां से ही बात रुकी थी।
जी सर, जी सर।
अच्छा, अच्छा। Thank you for highlighting. I'm thankful to the participants that they are quite attentive. Thank you for your interest and thank you for your attention and bringing this thing into my knowledge. Right? Varun ji, kindly convey my thanks to that specific participant. I will start
Sure.
again. I will start again. So we are going to start this IEEE standard for health device communication. So we all know that this particular family of IEEE P11073, we are finding it at several locations here. If we find it here, right? So this particular IEEE 11073 family of standards, they basically enable connections of medical devices such as pulse oximeters to communicate with other hardware such as computers or mobile phones, tablets, and other telemedicine equipment, which the doctors use for treating the remote location patients. This plug and play interoperability frees this healthcare providers and their patients to focus on treatment rather than wondering whether these multi-manufacturers devices will communicate with one another or not, right? So technically, this problem, yeah, this particular issue is called multi-vendor compatibility, and this happens in every field of technology, either medicine or communication or your laboratory, in your laboratory for some specific particular experimentation. So these are the issues which do appear from time to time, but if they are following some particular specific standards such as IEEE 11073 for interconnection, so by through this way, the users and manufacturers ensure that these particular devices with standardization, they are going to follow, they are going to be connected, and this shall not be the worry of the users and the doctors. So pulse oximeters we have recently used in the last pandemic time, and these oximeters have been saving the lives by indicating these low oxygen levels and help the doctors for deciding on patients' requirements on ventilators. We all know that in ICUs they were on pulse oximeters, so basically they were in use in every home. But these connections, they were critical and crucial when they are being used in the ICUs. Basically, through these devices only, it was possible for the doctors to have and watch on multiple screens through which were connected, which were giving these inputs and collecting this information using this IEEE 11073. Similarly, these particular connections are also required for in the use in the insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitoring. Then the sensors which use the sleep apnea, breathing issues, right? And sometimes we will feel that nowadays they are also being used in some health-based watches also, right? They are also using these standards for transferring this data to some central device, right? So as the technology is increasing day by day, the role of these standards and their usefulness is also increasing. If we see the example, another example I will like to explain, this is IEEE P11073-10246, right? Sorry, it is, let me recall, for IEEE 10426 it is, right? So 10426, basically this standard defines this communication framework that enables between this what they call it respiratory pump, basically personal respiratory pump, and devices such as PCs or tablets, etc. This is 424. This is for this breathing equipment, for this therapy equipment. So in this way, this technology standards are changing. This 4025, this is being used for this continuous glucose monitoring, right? 419, this is for insulin pump. So, and 417, this is for glucose meter. You can see all these devices here which are being used, but only these last numbers are changing. 420, this is body composition analyzer. 407, blood pressure monitor. 441, this is cardiovascular fitness and activity monitor. So there are several devices. 406, it is ECG, right? So this IEEE standards are helping to speed up this treatment process. They are also helping up this drug development processes for the patients. And in this way, there are dozens of, you can find that there are dozens of platforms, scripts, and tools for analyzing the data available. Nowadays, you can also find that genome data is also available. So in this way, this creates challenges for exchanging all the key informations that researchers can share, as well as regulators can also make some policies related to their with the availability of this data in abundance. So these IEEE standards they are basically being used by the doctors and other drug researchers. Basically, you can call them this clinical researchers and other policymakers like regulators, with a framework for sharing all these data which are directly uh, uh, captured using these standards. So the error in the data is also being considered minimum, because no manual intervention is there in collecting these data, right? So in this way, this information available can be considered error-free for making any decisions for manufacturing or policy making by the regulators. So in this way, early decision making can also be taken care using these IEEE standards. Then comes some other example of this connectivity through IEEE standards. And these are other examples of some IEEE standards. Just a minute. So this, as we all know that the connectivity is major issues nowadays, and we need it today than more than ever, since yesterday at least more. So in addition to this Wi-Fi networks, and they are required nowadays in offices, in homes. We know that this 802, which is majorly written over here in the middle column, they are being used for these local area networks, such as for connection of desktop PCs and other share printers in our offices and homes. And other network options are these metropolitan area networks. Sometimes they are also referred as MANs, MANS, which use this IEEE 802 to connect office buildings from this interconnection between office buildings, basically from one to another. So it is estimated that more than 98% of all internet traffic crosses one or more IEEE 802 network during its transmissions, and that is the popularity of this IEEE 802. This data says, I'm not trying to highlight this IEEE 802, but we all know that this is a major milestone in IEEE standardization process. And if you prefer this wired connection, we all know that this 802 is useful in all these devices. I will not go in detail now. And if you prefer a wired connection, one option is that is FireWire, that is IEEE 1394, right? So just a minute. So this IEEE 1394 provides this foundation for that by defining the serial buses that connect the computer system with its peripherals, right? Then comes this Ethernet standard 802.3. The IEEE standardization is currently developing a newer version of next generation 802.3 standard that will enable speeds beyond this today's 400 gigabyte per second speed, which is the maximum capacity right now. That's a key for providing homes and businesses with the throughput they are going to play for tomorrow's bandwidth intensive applications, such as 8K videos, etc., etc. 8K is just an example. Streaming in other ways that people are coping with nowadays in this time of this quarantine and lockdown. This IEEE 2200 that is going to help by providing a framework for supporting content delivery to portable devices such as tablets and storage hardwares, such as these home media servers and all those new types of social media activities which are being popular on everyday basis. So if you go through these devices, you will find that several IEEE standards which are for EV standards, because we know that EV is future, and we are expecting that in next 10 years, we are also going to have some more than 70% population of electric vehicles among all the vehicles in India. Then it comes the home networking standards, because this smart home concept is developing day by day, and this smart grid into home device standards, that trend is also going to come. And again, this is the list of those standards which we are using in the smart grid and home devices standards. Then this home networking standards to video standards, mobile video standards, and smart metering standards, as they are going to be the part of electricity grid, energy grid, water grid, gas grid, etc., etc. So in this way, these smart metering standards are being popular on daily basis for this enabling connectivity among various systems and subsystems of our daily use. So these are the things which are, there are several examples, more examples we can take, and you can use this diagram to explore the details of each standards. We can meet sometime for this on this particular topic only, which standard is being used for enabling connectivity in our daily life, but we will have to move fast. So we will, let me introduce this IEEE standard association that we called IEEE SA. Basically, this IEEE SA is a globally recognized standard setting body within IEEE. It develops consensus for standards through an open process that engages industries and different industries, and that brings together a broad stakeholder community who is going to use these equipment which will follow these standards. So these IEEE standards set specifications and best practices based on current scientific and technological knowledge. And if we go by the numbers, IEEE Standard Association has a portfolio of around 1,300 active standards. I'm using the word active, right? We will explain it later, what is the meaning of this active standards, right? And other than this, more than 500 standards, they are under development, right? So this is the size of IEEE standard activities. This is, in this way, we can say that this IEEE SA is a that is an independent global standard development organization. There are some other organizations also like SIGRE and others, but IEEE is specifically dedicated to several domains comprehensively, and no other standard development agency takes care of in such broad areas as per the numbers and their comprehensive applications as IEEE has. And the standards which are developed, they are based on consensus and requirement gathered through the participation of different stakeholders, and they, through their working groups, basically they are called working groups, right? So the processes for proposing a new standard is also a established process basically, and this can be initiated by any individual or entity without prior affiliation with IEEE. It is not mandatory that it shall be started by some IEEE workers or IEEE associate. No, anyone can start the process. Just he will have to establish, yes, this particular IEEE standard is going to be required in future, and these will be the stakeholders, so that they shall also be included in framing the standard, in the process of framing the standard. Then comes this IEEE SA, Standard Association Industry Connection Program, that is IC program, right? And this program helps. Yes. Any question? Varunji, shall I continue?
Yes, sir. You may continue, sir.
Acha, thank you. I thought there is some question from anyone.
No, no, sir. You may continue, sir.
Okay, thank you. So this IC program, IEEE SA IC program, basically this helps in incubation of new standards and related products and services by facilitating the collaboration among organizers and some different organizations and individuals as they hone and refine their thinking on the requirement of that particular standard among these rapidly changing technologies, right? So this IC group that empowers with the customizable menu of IEEE and IEEE standardization, that resources to produce fast track contents and deliverables such as proposals for standards. Then they are followed by this white papers, then some databases they use, and this registration services. They also develop these guides for this based on the reviews given by peer groups. And finally, they come out with some position papers also in the process of this IEEE standard development. So this industry connections activity, basically they do not develop this process of standards. Basically they are a intermediate step in the development of this IEEE standards, right? What IEEE IC can do, IEEE industry connection activity initiation document, that is to be submitted to IEEE Standard Association for starting a new IEEE standard program. Okay. So this IEEE industry connections activities may propose a new standard by submitting a project authorization request, that is called PAR, right? And if the PAR is approved, the standard is developed in an IEEE standard development working group, right? And that carries forward the process of developing the standard. Okay. So next is different standard association projects driven from India. This is a list of different projects. You can find this IEEE standard for authentication in multi-server environment, recommended practices for creating self-learning tutorials and side-by-side learning, the standard for interoperable and secure wireless local area network infrastructure and architecture, the standard for smart city component systems discovery and semantic exchange of objectives. So there are several standards, IEEE SA projects, they have been driven from India in the past. Just a minute, what happened? Okay. So this is the complete list. Let me move ahead. This is the IEEE Standard Industry Connect programs driven from India in the areas of rural communications, disaster recovery for blockchain nodes and enterprise workloads, implementation roadmap for systematic EV adoption in India and Asia, digital inclusion, identity, trust and agency, very important program that has been initiated and driven from India, NLP studies for Indian language resources, industrial AI, then comes intelligent transportation systems, testbed development, and finally this power line communications testbeds in India. This is a list of those programs of IEEE SAIC which are being driven from India. Before that, I have shown you this list of different IEEE SA standards which are being driven from India. Now comes this IEEE standards adopted by BIS basically. So as I told you, this BIS is a national standard body of India established under this BIS Act 2016 for the harmonious development of the activities of standardization, making and quality certifications of goods and for matters connected for related matters basically, right? So this IEEE SA has a general cooperation and standard adoption agreement with BIS, allowing BIS to designate, adopt and translate IEEE standards as Indian national standards, that is IES, right? This IES. So the IEEE standards adopted by BIS basically, they will have this dual number with them. Number one is original IEEE standard number with the year of publication given in this column 1, right? Followed by the second number allotted by the BIS with the year of publication. So here you can find that this particular IEEE standard C57.155 year 2014, that is the IEEE guide for interpretation of gases generated in natural ester and synthetic ester image transformers, that was adopted by BIS in 2018. So this particular standard, when it will be used by BIS, this will be known by these two numbers. Part 1 of the number is this and part 2 of the number is this. This is the number and this is the year of manufacturing. This is the number of the BIS and this is the year of adoption, right? So in this way, these 5 standards, they are being adopted directly by the BIS, which are the IEEE SA standards. Now there are other bodies also which try to help this standardization process in India. They are called Telecommunication Engineering Center. They are Telecommunication Standard Development Society of India. One is Broadband India Forum, that is BIF. Other than this, other IEEE standard adoption programs, they also run in India for different applications, right? So now let us come back to this final slide, how these standards are created and revised. Basically, this is a very long process of having these 6 steps. So before we come to these 6 steps, let me tell you in brief regarding this process of creation of standards, right? It may be a longer thing, but it will take more than 5 to 8 minutes in my description. So if you have any question in that process, please let me finish. And after that, you may put your question regarding that. So this IEEE SA brings together a broad range of people and organizations from different technical and geographical points of origin into the working groups, as I told you. And these working groups, they are open to participate for anyone across the globe. So as we know that the multiple industries use many standards such as healthcare, automotive, and consumer electronics. That is why this IEEE SA welcomes stakeholders from each vertical market, which may be the possible users of futuristic standard which is under development. So these volunteer working groups create a collaborative environment for developing the standards in this way. Suppose a number of working groups come together because they agree that there are needs to be a new way for transferring this moderate amount of data over short distances. I am giving you an example, basically. That was the story behind the development of this IEEE 2.15.1. That Bluetooth standard was developed with requirements of data transfer over short distances with very low power consumption to maximize the battery life. So in this way, sometimes what happens, several work groups come together to consolidate their requirement and bring out a totally new technology, which may be the result of several participation of several working groups. So this throughout the process of this standard development, the working group takes this kind of basic concept. Several basic concepts are being considered, and sometimes they fresh out also, which are not found useful, and they are examined on the basis of these technological aspects, processes, and other key attributes on the way of achieving them. So these help ensure product functionality and this compatibility, facilitating their interoperability and support for this safety of the user and privacy of users' data and its security. So these are the several issues which are considered sometimes as a multi-requirement by multiple manufacturers who come forward to give their inputs for a single product. So we know that IEEE SA connects, I told you that IEEE SA connects people from across the globe to raise the standards for technology. So what happens? These interested individuals and organizations, they start creating and writing standards through an open platform. These volunteers participate, collaborate to identify the market need for that standardization, exchanging the they exchange their industry knowledge and their expertise, and then they attempt to reach a consensus to push the realization of standards. So if we consider the examples of from Wi-Fi to blockchain, sensors to medical devices, IEEE Standard Association basically brings together more than 600 active working groups that represent nearly 1,200 active standards, and around 1,000 products is striving to make pupils' everyday life easier, right? So these are 1,200 active standards and more than 1,000 products. They are being used by these standards. So whether you are a consumer or a businessman or an educator, like most of us are, or a policymaker, you may find some useful place where you can contribute as per your needs, as per your specialization, as per your expertise in their formation or in their uses, or you can also participate in the review process before the finalization of the standards that I will explain further. So now we come to this diagram.
Participants, you are please requested to mute yourself. Participants, please mute yourself. Sir, please, you may continue.
ऐसा दोस्त भी मिला है, ऐसा दोस्त मिला नहीं है कि मैथ का, अरे हाँ मिल गया मैथ का याद।
Sir, you are not audible.
सर मैं बोल नहीं रहा हूँ, मैंने कहा बहुत जगह से कुछ आवाजें आ रही थी इस वजह से।
अच्छा अच्छा, जी सर, जी सर।
ठीक है। मुझे एक मौका मिल गया ऐसी बहाने थोड़ी सी सांस लेने का, सुस्ताने का। थैंक यू। आई विल कंटिन्यू नाउ.
जी सर,
So
जी सर।
I was going to explain this particular diagram. This is almost, please bear with me for a few more minutes. We are going to just conclude this. I think this is the last slide, and next slide is going to be thank you only. So I will try to explain some 4-5 minutes more on this particular slide. Now we are finally come on this key, how the standards are created. As I told you earlier, we will take up these 6 steps which are here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So these are the 6 steps which are basically, as I told you or explained you earlier also, but now this is the time to sum up. So these are the 6 main stages of formation of any standard. Number 1 is initiating the project. Second is mobilizing a working group. As I told you in the participation, who may participate in working groups and who are the stakeholders. Then third is drafting a standard. Basically, once the working group is formalized and everything is settled down, then they come to the standard. Then next stage is the balloting a standard, then gaining final approval, and lastly, maintaining a standard, right? So let me explain one by one. The development process typically starts with a concept, which can be a very broad or very specific. Both are the options. The concept is turned into a formal request from a standard committee, which can be a business society, or which may be a industry, which may be in any other organization. Then the IEEE has one corporate advisory group, and the standard boards, they can also be the sponsors to these IEEE standards which are to be developed. IEEE Standard Association, that is IEEE SA, oversees and helps in facilitating the process for developing the standard, while the standard committee is responsible for organizing the development team and coordinating its activities. And once this IEEE Standard Association approves the request, the standard committee creates a working group of either of individuals or of entities who represent businesses. That may be non-profit, that may be trade association also, that may be regulatory agencies also, and other organizations who want to participate. However, the common denominator is that all of these organizations to whom they are their participant, they share a vision, basically commonly, of why the world will be a better place with this standard, to the point they are willing to provide all their personal expertise on a personal basis. No, sorry, this all personal expertise on a volunteer basis. Basically, all the persons who are participating, they are not the paid ones, right? They all are volunteers who are sharing their knowledge, or means all these participations for these IEEE standards, that is voluntary. So presently, or anytime, you can see that more than 500 working groups are in activities, and this particular number of 5,500 in process of activity development, in development process, that highlights the breadth and depth of these innovations which are taking place within IEEE standards, right? So years and even decades later, the working group members, they feel pride just because of their volunteer support. The world is now a better place to live, because sometimes before they participated voluntarily in development of this particular standard. So we come back. So this after this mobilizing working group, they draft a standard based on all these things. Then when these working groups are in the process of finalization, IEEE SA also takes care that specifically they ensure that a single member organization does not dominate a working group, right? So that is the level of democracy in finalization of the working group memberships. These specific guidelines, these tough guidelines, basically help in building consensus through democratic means, including meetings, votes, presentations, and discussions to resolve all the technical issues raised by all these experts and members of the working group. Now comes how the consensus is made, right? So with all these things, a draft is prepared, right? Now the draft goes under discussion, right? And the best way for the discussion is when this draft is finalized, this goes through a process of balloting process of 30 to 60 days. So what happens? This IEEE SA creates a balloting group whose member voters vote whether to approve the standard or not, right? And there are specific guidelines for that ensure an open and transparent process at this stage of balloting also. For example, I can tell you that anyone can give comments in this process, right? Even they are either they have participated in the working group or not, they are in the member of balloting group or not, either they are IEEE SA member or not, right? Anyone can give a comment on this standard, right? Now, this is the responsibility of that ballot resolution group to respond all these comments which have appeared after this show time of this standard draft standard basically, and yeah, that is limited to this 30 to 60 days period. Now, it is particularly taken care that the balloters, they belong to different interest categories such as manufacturers or end users, and it is taken care that no interest category can comprise over 1/3 of the total members of the balloting group. So it means any one community shall not drive away the ballot in their favor or with their intentions. Now, the goal is to achieve the greatest consensus among them. So again, the tough rules are there. If a standard passes it, at least 75% of all ballots from a balloting group are returned, and if 70% of these 70% have yes, then only that particular ballot is considered passed. That particular draft is considered passed. Second condition is that if 30% of the ballots remain in abstention, right, then ballot fails. So these are the two typical conditions of 75% to 75% yes, or less than 30%, sorry, 30% or more absentees, or this abstentions basically we call them. If they are there, then it is not going to be passed. So once this process is completed, the working group submits the standard to IEEE SA Review Committee, that is SE Revcom, followed by the approval of this IEEE Standard Board, and this submission, review, acceptance, if all is completed, then this IEEE Standard Association publishes it as a document, a standard document for distribution and purchase on its website. So this was the process of the creation of a standard, right? Now, second thing comes ki how they are revised, right, or updated. So basically, what they are called, these standards, they are called the living documents that typically are clarified, modified, and updated based on feedback received. They are also have impact of market conditions and some other factors which are not being described here. So basically, each standard development organization, SDO, they have their own timeline, and this IEEE SA also has a timeline of 10 years for their standards. After that, this standard, any standard of this 10 years life, either that is withdrawn or it is moved to inactive reserved status. So this is all about after this refining and updating the standard, the working group may also spend that decade when this was active. During that period of 10 years, they may create handbooks, tutorials, and other related materials, right? So this helps us users like me and you to understand the standard in a better way for some possible applications in our research applications. So in this way, we can say that this is the total working process or developing process of standard for creation and their revision. And if you also want to involve yourself in this process of developing a standard, you can visit this website, standards.ieee.org. You will find that more than, as I told you, more than 500 active groups. They are in the process of finalization of some specific standard. Definitely, I assure you that you will find something useful there, and you will like to be part of that particular standard development process, right? Even I was not aware with those things earlier, but in last few years, I have been the part of some two standard working group creations teams. So that gives you a satisfaction, and that gives you an opportunity to interact with some global leaders, though very small ideas sometimes, but yes, those precious ideas change your way of thinking and change your contributions in the domain of research. So that's all from my side for this today's deliberations on this IEEE standards. That's all from my side. This all the information which I presented here, that has been taken from this IEEE Standard Association website, that is IEEE SA, as I told you earlier. For you can also visit that website for your participation. If you have any query, please ask.
Participants, you may ask the questions now.
Hello, sir.
You may also write to this email ID if you have not your questions are not ready at this moment. You may also write me in this email ID. I will definitely like to answer your questions, and I will love that interaction with you for my future domains. Yeah, please, if you have any questions. Yeah, Ashwini, Mr. Ashwini is there.
Yeah,
Ashwini is there.
hello. Hello, Dr. Asheesh, sir.
Ji, namaste, sir.
Namaskar, sir. Sir, very good presentation, sir, about the standards. Sir, my question is that you, as you told about medical instruments that we are using.
Ji.
Right, sir. So when we are creating such instruments, like we have used this Arduino and integrated the circuits and created a device which is going to measure like temperature and what you told in your slides. Right, sir?
Uh-huh.
So one person asked me ki how you have calibrated your instruments.
No, we are not calibrating these instruments. Basically, these calibrations is an entirely different thing. This calibration means that is the manufacturing of equipment, right? as I told you that the manufacturing of equipment is a one thing, right? So as I give you example of this oximeter, so there is some sensor which is measuring this percentage of oxygen. So that is going to convert that measurement into some number. Here comes the calibration part. But whatever standards are there, basically they are making this measurements communication to different stakeholders in a easy way, in a standard way. Am I clear, sir, or not, Mr. Ashwin?
Very, very clear, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ashish, sir, for the correct answer and for enlightening the concept.
I just
Mr.
tried to
Priyanshu
make
Kumar
my attempt,
Pandey.
Mr. Ashwin. Thank you.
Mr. Priyanshu Kumar Pandey.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello. Am I audible, sir?
जी प्रियांशु आप ऑडिबल हैं.
ओके सर. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि जैसे वी आर लिविंग इन द एरा ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशंस, so while developing these standards, is there any measures which are being taken care of in order to ensure the security of data?
Priyanshu, I may not be the correct person to answer this. Basically, I do not work in that domain, right? So I was simply discussing that particular standard which is taken care of these things, right? So I request Dr. Kakar to connect you with some other suitable expert with him, or you can write me with your specific query. I will try to connect with someone, right? I feel that this particular question is not in my expert domain.
Okay, sir, no problem. No,
I'm
sir.
sorry for that,
Thank you, sir.
Priyanshu.
Sir, there is a question from one of the participants that is there any prerequisite skill for volunteering in IEEE Standard Association?
No, sir, no prerequisite. As I told you that you are you are going to be very useful for them, right? So in both ways, as an expert, either you are going to learn something or you are going to give them something on the basis of their experience. So that's why this participation is a good way to learn and be benefited and disseminate your knowledge and let the others be benefited. So in this way, as we all know that this dissemination is our theme as a teacher, as a technical expert. Am I clear, Varunji?
Yes, sir.
So there are several calls on that particular page. You may join as per where you feel that your expertise is suitable. You can request them. You can send them a request to join.
Okay, sir. So any other question from the participants?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I think there is no question from the participant side. So I thank you very much to Professor Asheesh Kumar Singh sir for this very informative and enlightening lecture session on IEEE standards. I hope the participants have enjoyed and learned very much from this session. So I once again thank you, Professor Asheesh Kumar Singh sir, for this. I would also like to inform that we have recorded this session. So after the completion of the workshop, all the recorded lectures will be uploaded on the IEEE UP Section Young Professionals channel. So once again, I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kakar sir. Thank you very much. And all the participants, I am thankful to you for giving me this opportunity. And it will be my pleasure if I could interact with you even after this session. You can write me for your queries, if any. I will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
May I leave this meeting, Varunji?
Ji, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So I would like to inform the participants of this workshop that tomorrow the session will start at 3:30 p.m. and for tomorrow we have the speaker Dr. Priya Ranjan Madhuli from IIT BHU and Professor Satish Kumar Singh from IIIT Allahabad. The lecture schedule will be from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. and then 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. So I once again request you to please join the session 10 minutes before the scheduled time. Thank you. I once again thank you all the participants. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.